Tonight, conciliation trumps confrontation at a consequential White House meeting. Prime Minister Mark Carney's direct in-person defense.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
The U.S. president's repeated rhetoric.
But never say never. Never say never.
And what was behind those unspoken words.
I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind.
What the meeting signals for the future of a fractured relationship.
We're in a much better position now.
We need trade to continue between our states and Canada.
Plus, two nuclear-armed neighbors on edge. India strikes Pakistan. Also, who will lead the Conservatives while Pierre Poilievre fights to secure a seat? And hours away from the most secretive election for a head of state.
The first time they're really getting to know one another. They even had name tags.
The last images from inside the Sistine Chapel before cardinals are shut off from the world for a sacred tradition.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina, reporting tonight from Washington.
Good evening from the American capital tonight after a day of high-stakes talks between the leaders of two countries who took a firm but friendly approach in their first face-to-face meeting. The Prime Minister and the U.S. President striking a cordial tone, but at the same time clashing on the issue of annexation. And despite that conversation, still no resolution to the lingering trade war. CTV senior political correspondent Mike LeCouture was inside the Oval Office for that meeting and leads us off tonight.
Fist pumps following their first handshake made for an awkward moment between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney, the first steps in a renewed relationship that both sides want to repair.
I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky, I mean, how good, the great one.
Trump respects Canadians, but not the border, musing again about Canada becoming the 51st state, something Carney attempted to end.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale. And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale. Ever.
A comment that didn't derail President Trump.
When you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada is not for sale, does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say never.
But in that same moment, the word never was mouthed by Prime Minister Mark Carney. Now, the two men did agree that the trilateral trade deal, CUSMA, needs to be renegotiated. But a senior government official told reporters that could only come with the removal of U.S. tariffs on Canada. Now, ahead of the lunch, Trump said there was nothing Carney could say today to get those tariffs removed. Now, the Prime Minister didn't expect that level of progress today, but he says there was some.
You don't expect to have specific progress as things move along, even when you're making progress.
Now, in the Oval Office, Trump went out of his way to mention how he didn't like former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, who helped negotiate the trilateral trade agreement. Now, Prime Minister Carney said today marked a new milestone in the relationship, one that he says will continue when they meet again at the G7 in Kananaskis, Alberta. Mike LeCouture, CTV News, Washington.
So what has been the reaction from the White House to today's big meeting? CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin has been tracking that.
What was billed as a no-frills affair, a military honor guard was set up for the Prime Minister's arrival. Longtime allies, now trade war foes. And what stings the most, Donald Trump still pushing for Canada to become the 51st state.
It would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
The Prime Minister stood his ground in front of the cameras and off.
Have you asked the President to stop calling Canada the 51st state?
Yes.
When did you ask him?
Today.
The tone friendly, mutual praise, but not over the top. Still, Trump won't budge on lifting his punishing tariffs.
Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
But Trump is under pressure at home. His trade war is starting to bite after slapping a 25% tariff on Canadian steel, aluminum, and auto parts. Canada reciprocated, even boycotting American products. After weeks of Trump bragging about upcoming trade deals, nothing has materialized.
We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market.
Even American governors are calling Trump out.
I think 34 states have Canada as their largest trading partner. I can tell you all the states in the Northeast do. And we need Canada for lumber because we want to build housing.
And while two of the largest trading partners continue to talk, at least the president is no longer calling the prime minister governor.
No, I haven't done that yet, and maybe I won't. I did have a lot of fun with Trudeau.
And in the end, maybe that step forward is a signal that both sides can make progress in what will be challenging weeks ahead. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. Joy Malvin here in Washington. And back at home, here is what Ontario's premier thought of the meeting between the two leaders.
I thought he did really well. It was very productive. He held his own. I'll tell you, it's very obvious that President Trump likes Prime Minister Carney a lot more than he liked Prime Minister Trudeau. We're in a much better position now than we were before this meeting.
Those comments coming on the eve of tomorrow's First Ministers meeting. For more on what we can expect, CTV's chief political correspondent, Vatican. So when the Prime Minister meets with the premiers tomorrow, how are they likely to interpret or view what happened here in Washington today?
I think, Omar, there's going to be a collective sigh of relief. They have been waiting and wanting for weeks someone in the federal government to take the lead, to do their bidding, and they have now found that in a new Prime Minister. I would say the other thing to watch for tomorrow, though, is something developing on a more contentious front, the kind of fight between some of the separatist talk in Alberta and Premier Smith there against Premier Ford in Ontario, who was pushing back against that sentiment and even her kind of tacit support in some ways of it.
With regards to the body language of the two leaders inside the Oval Office today, what stood out most for you?
Look, the tone and the tenor was good. And it's way better that we're talking about that than the opposite. But beyond that, I don't know what else it means. The substance of what Trump said was still very much anti-Canada in nature. And so there's a big question mark for me hanging over whether this actually translates into a different relationship moving forward. Great that we're not talking about a bad meeting when it comes to tone and tenor, but on substance, who knows?
All right, Vashi, thank you so much. Very busy day. And on your birthday, happy birthday to you.
Thanks, Omar.
And those trade tensions with the U.S. persist, and there are already signs Canada's finding other markets as they do. Canadian exports to the U.S. plunged 6.6% in March compared to the previous month, the biggest drop since the pandemic in 2020. But Canada pushed more merchandise to other countries, that number surging by nearly 25%. And the Canadian dollar got a bump after Carney's visit to the White House today, pitting 72.60 cents U.S., a 7-month high. And joining us now is our chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. Amanda, we know businesses thrive when there's stability, and this environment is just the opposite. After today's meeting between Carney and Trump, how big of a sigh of relief are businesses breathing, if at all?
Omar, there was little expectation of a concrete deal today, but it was a start on what the Prime Minister called an economic and security partnership, and the beginning of a conversation that might include concessions on tariffs already in place, but likely a longer-term look at the North American trading framework. Tone and relationship matter a lot in these things, and on that front, the Prime Minister got good reviews today. And the business community likely reassured, as we saw in the export data. Businesses will adapt. They'll continue to deal with whatever's right in front of them. But certainty and clarity is, of course, what ultimately we want to get to as soon as we can. We're not there yet, and it might be a bit of a road ahead. We were warned about that from the Prime Minister. But I think it's safe to say that they likely feel that we're better off today than we were yesterday, and that it's a good start. Omar?
All right, let's step forward. Amanda, thank you. Donald Trump also teased a big announcement ahead of his trip to the Middle East next week and said the U.S. will stop bombing Houthi rebels in Yemen after the Iranian-backed group told his administration they will stop attacking American ships. That announcement comes as Israel says it has fully disabled Yemen's international airport, which is controlled by Houthis. It's the second straight day of Israeli strikes in retaliation for a Houthi missile strike at Israel's international airport. India has fired missiles into Pakistan as tensions soar between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. Pakistani officials say at least 8 people were killed, including a child. India says it struck, quote, terrorist infrastructure, blaming Pakistan for last month's massacre of 26 tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir. Islamabad denies the allegations and is vowing to retaliate. Conservative leader Friedrich Merz is officially the new German chancellor, winning in the second round of voting after a shocking first-round defeat. No chancellor candidate has lost the first vote since democracy was restored in Germany in 1949. The Conservatives chose a leader today to temporarily replace Pierre Poilievre as he eyes a second chance at winning a seat. CTV's Judy Trin takes a closer look at Poilievre's support in the Conservative caucus and the moves to get their house in order.
The Conservatives will be occupying more space in Parliament, 143 seats on the opposition benches, but their leader won't be there.
Back to work at caucus today after the most recent election. Obviously, we didn't come out on top.
Pierre Poilievre won't be able to debate the Prime Minister in question period until he wins a seat. Alberta MP Damien Carrick has agreed to step aside so Poilievre can run in his rural riding.
He's from Alberta. I think he knows the issues and the people very well there.
Caucus chose Andrew Scheer to be the interim leader of the opposition.
We expect that Mr. Carney will be true to his word. He has promised to call a by-election quickly so that Pierre can rejoin us in the House and lead us from the chamber.
But behind closed doors, Conservatives voted to adopt the rules of the Reform Act, which allows them to trigger a leadership review. But publicly, members are showing support for Poilievre.
This is what leadership and caucus discussion is all about. We have a free expression that we raise some concern, and we did that correctly with a very positive tone because we want to win the next one.
The party gained 24 more seats than it did in the 2021 election. Poilievre continues to position himself as the difference maker for next time.
How do we, first of all, keep the enormous number of the 8 million people who voted for us? That was just almost 2.5 million more than the previous time, but then add another roughly 1 million votes that will allow us to get over the finish line.
The last time the Conservatives used the Reform Act, they ousted former leader Erin O'Toole. That may not happen this time, but Pierre Poilievre will still have to compete in a by-election. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Overseas now to the start of one of the oldest traditions in the world just hours from now, the papal conclave to select the next head of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. The Vatican today releasing these images from inside the Sistine Chapel where cardinals will gather for the secretive vote before the doors are locked. And right next to it, the so-called Room of Tears, where the next pope will don the white papal vestments for the first time. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin is in Vatican City tonight with more on the final preparations to choose the 267th pontiff.
Below the high Renaissance masterpiece of Michelangelo, the table is now set for the conclave. All 133 voting cardinals are now in Rome, including 4 Canadians. This is the Archbishop of Toronto, Frank Leo. Some have placed odds on potential successors. There's Cardinal Luis Tagle of the Philippines and Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State. But publicly, cardinals are giving little away.
Wait and see.
Among the faithful, many who want to see how a new pope will carry on the legacy of Pope Francis on difficult issues for the Church.
For me, the biggest issue remains paedophilia within the Catholic Church.
In a symbolic moment marking the official end of Pope Francis's tenure, his fisherman's ring was voided. It was used to seal documents, but also the ring kissed as a gesture of respect and devotion by Catholics. The Archdiocese of Toronto says its 2 cardinals have now moved into Santa Marta, the living quarters of the Vatican. This after a series of meetings.
For many, these meetings that have been taking place in the last few days are the first time they're really getting to know one another. They even had name tags for them so they could see who they're talking to.
Expectations are, well, sky high near St. Peter's Square. Father Christian Lindenbach from Saskatchewan is in Rome pursuing graduate studies.
What I would hope for
is that we get a saint, truthfully, someone who knows how to speak to the world.
He will be on standby for any sign of smoke emerging from the Vatican.
When the bells start ringing and those sorts of things, yeah, there's going to be a group of us from Canada that'll run to the square to be witness. It's a really unique opportunity for a guy from Saskatchewan to be present for the election of a pope in Rome.
After Mass, an oath of secrecy, the voting process will begin. The first smoke expected early evening here in Rome Wednesday. Omar.
It took Cardinals 5 ballots over 2 days to select Pope Francis in 2013. We'll see how long it takes this time. Jen, thank you so much. Coming up.
I was just searching. I was running through the woods, screaming their name till my throat hurt.
A family's desperate plea to find their missing children. Plus, which Hollywood actress was home while a man came crashing through her front gate? First responders widened their search today for 2 young children who disappeared from their home in Nova Scotia 5 days ago. Their family and community desperate for any clues that could lead to the siblings. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
An exhaustive search has consumed more than 140 search and rescue workers scouring every inch of this thickly wooded area in rural Nova Scotia. 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan have been missing since Friday morning, when it's believed they wandered from home.
At this point, Lily and Jack are still considered missing children.
The children's mother and stepfather are holding out hope, waiting for any shred of good news.
Hardly any evidence at all since the first day. It's mind-boggling that nothing else was found.
Authorities are zeroing in on a radius of several kilometers from where the children were last seen playing on Friday.
We want to bring these 2 children home to their parents. We've got people who've been here since day one, since the first time the call came in. They have one job. This is all search and rescue does, is they try to bring people home safely.
The area being searched continues to change and expand on an hourly basis. 3 search helicopters continue to fly over the area. The RCMP has also deployed high-tech drones.
The goal of the drones with the FLIR technology is to locate differences in temperatures on the ground.
A steady wave of concerned community members have stepped forward, offering to volunteer and help in the search.
This is home. This is one of our own. And that sense of Pictou County is when something happens, the people here rise up.
The RCMP also has numerous investigative teams involved in the fight to find Lily and Jack Sullivan. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia.
Still ahead. What happened to the intruder who crashed through the gates of a famous actress's home? R&B legend Smokey Robinson has been accused of rape and sexual assault in a new lawsuit filed in Los Angeles. 4 former housekeepers who are also accusing him of making them work illegally long hours and not paying them enough are seeking $50 million in damages. The allegations go back to 2007. Robinson's wife, Frances, is also named. No police reports have been filed, and the couple is not commenting.
The suspect, male white, is on the ground out of the vehicle. The suspect that drove the vehicle through the front gate.
Also in Los Angeles, a man is under arrest after smashing a car through the gates of actress Jennifer Anistons' home while she was inside. The suspect was stopped and held by private security until police arrived and arrested him.
So we prayed for son. And eventually we got it on one day.
The official coronation portraits of King Charles and Queen Camilla have been unveiled. The artist says he envisioned the throne room at St. James's Palace as the ideal location. The portraits are on display at the National Gallery in London. Today marks 2 years since Charles's coronation, and of course the couple will be in Ottawa later this month for the opening of Parliament.
You happen to have a very, very good hockey player right here on the Capitals, who I have a lot of respect. He is a big, tough cookie, too. He just broke the record.
And there was a non-political moment from today's Oval Office meeting that caught many by surprise. U.S. President appeared to suggest that hockey superstar Alexander Ovetchkin was a Canadian. The Russian captain of the Washington Capitals recently broke Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record. Still ahead, how Mark Carney's visit compares to those of past prime ministers. Today's visit here in Washington comes at a time of tension, but follows a long-standing tradition of face-to-face meetings in what can be a difficult relationship to manage. Here's how Pierre Trudeau described it in 1969.
Americans should never underestimate the constant pressure on Canada which the mere presence of the United States has produced. We're a different people from you, and we're a different people partly because of you. Living next to you is in some ways like sleeping with an elephant.
Pierre Trudeau would meet with 4 different presidents as prime minister, including Jimmy Carter. But it was his successor, Brian Mulroney, who had a famously close relationship with Ronald Reagan, paving the way for a free trade deal. Jean Chrétien had a close relationship with Bill Clinton, and despite some differences, was also credited by George W. Bush as one of the first leaders to call after the 9/11 attacks. Barack Obama traveled to Canada and met with Stephen Harper for his first foreign trip as president, even stopping for cookies in Byward Market. And Justin Trudeau was honored with a state dinner hosted by Obama in 2016. Different issues and eras, but a need for those face-to-face meetings. And that is a snapshot of this Tuesday from Washington. We leave you tonight with some highlights from Carney's meeting with Trump. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.
It would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace, that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership.
But I say never. I've had many, many things that were not doable.
Part of the way you conducted these tariffs has taken advantage of existing aspects of the system. So it's going to have to change. There's other elements that have come, and that's part of what we're going to discuss.
Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. And no, I love Canada.